There's a saying in sailing that you either have run aground, you are aground, or you're a liar. In other words, what it's really saying is, as much as you hate to admit it, there are times it didn't work out. You pushed it too hard, you made a mistake, whatever. Again, as much as you hate to admit it, it didn't work out. Now, I, on the other hand, always used to say, if we haven't broken something lately, we're not trying hard enough. But you know, it's the same way in our relationship with God. So many people play it safe. They set their expectations so low because they don't want to risk being disappointed. They don't want to risk not understand what God is doing. And so they do set their expectations so low. Or when God doesn't perform exactly the way they envisioned it, how many are disappointed and drift away from Him? But through it all, shouldn't we set our expectations higher? And through it all, isn't God really saying, trust me? You know, God brought His people out of Egypt. And it was an amazing thing. He did it miraculously, and they came out with great wealth and rejoicing. And He's in the process of taking them to this inheritance He has for them. It seems like God is on the move. We're on easy street. But the journey didn't work the way they thought it would. It didn't look like what they thought it should look like. It didn't meet their expectations. And so often they were frustrated, they were disappointed, they were discouraged because they didn't understand what God was doing. But ultimately, God was trying to prepare them for so much more. God was at work. And through it all, you just know God was saying, trust me. But so often, they wanted to return to the old life. They wanted to turn back. They wanted to give up. Job suffered so much. But then when God does respond, He doesn't actually address what has happened, any of that. But what He says to Job, and is profound, He says, who questions my wisdom in ignorance? In other words, what He's saying is, my wisdom is infinite, and your understanding is so tiny. Ultimately, wasn't He really saying, trust me? And in the end, God blessed Job more than he ever had before. John the Baptist. Now, Jesus called John the Baptist the greatest among men. And John had baptized Jesus and been there when God said, this is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased. But now, John is in prison. It didn't look quite like he expected. And he sent a couple of his followers to ask Jesus, are you the one? And how Jesus responds is not to answer the question directly, but what He says is, go back and tell John what you have seen. People are healed. Blind eyes are open. In other words, God's power is at work. In other words, trust me. You know, we need people who are going to set those expectations high, that are going to take a risk, not a risk in God not moving, but taking that risk that we don't quite understand what He's doing. And we have to risk and manage our own expectations and disappointment and really say, God, I want to see you move. I'm willing to get out of my comfort zone. It doesn't have to look like I think it should look. And through that, isn't God saying, trust me?